In the burning heat of western India, scientists dug deep into a dusty coal mine in Kutch. They found something that seemed impossible. At first, they looked like just a few old bones. These were backbone pieces buried in rock for millions of years. But when scientists studied them closely, they realized something amazing. This wasn't just any snake. These were the remains of a creature so huge and scary that it could change what we know about ancient predators. They called it Vasuki indicus. The name comes from Vasuki, a giant snake king from Hindu stories who wraps around the neck of Lord Shiva. It was the perfect name because this ancient snake ruled its world just like the mythical one. Scientists think Vasuki was 11 to 15 meters long. That's 36 to 49 feet, longer than a school bus. Some think it weighed almost a ton. Picture a snake so big that its shadow could cover you completely. The fossils were 27 backbone pieces that stayed in good shape. Each piece was wide and thick. The shape showed this was a snake built for crushing power, not speed. Unlike cobras or vipers today, Vasuki had no poison. Instead, it used pure strength. Like pythons and anacondas now, it squeezed its prey. It wrapped its strong body around animals and crushed them until their bones broke and they couldn't breathe. What did this giant snake eat? Not just small animals or birds. This was 47 million years ago in the Middle Eocene time. India was full of swamps, rivers, and tropical forests. Crocodiles lived in the water. Turtles swam in shallow areas. Big catfish lived in muddy rivers. Vasuki probably ate all of them. It might have even attacked early whales that came too close to shore. This discovery was more than just another fossil. It showed them an ancient world where weather, size, and evolution created monsters unlike anything alive today. But questions remain. How did a snake grow this big? What does it tell us about the world it lived in? We need to go back 47 million years to the Middle Eocene time. Earth was very different then. There were no icy north and south poles, no tall glaciers. Instead, the planet was warm everywhere. Average temperatures were 28 degrees Celsius, much hotter than today. This created huge tropical forests and swampy wetlands where reptiles could grow bigger than ever. India was not the same land we know today. Picture an island continent floating and slowly crashing into Asia. It was still surrounded by shallow seas. This separation created a special ecosystem filled with creatures that looked both familiar and strange. In the rivers, catfish as big as humans swam slowly. On the banks, crocodiles sat in the sun. Groups of early mammals walked through thick forests. Turtles slipped into water pools. It was a green paradise, but also a deadly place. Somewhere in the reeds lay Vasuki, coiled and waiting. With a body thicker than a tree trunk, it could stay still for hours. It was almost invisible in the shadows. When the right moment came, it would attack. It ambushed crocodiles and dragged them underwater. It caught mammals that came too close to the riverbank. Vasuki wasn't fast, but it didn't need to be. Its weapons were patience, power, and crushing coils. The warm climate made snakes like Vasuki possible. Heat allowed cold-blooded reptiles to reach huge sizes. Just like Titanoboa in South America, which lived 13 million years earlier, Vasuki was the result of a greenhouse world. The hotter the climate, the more energy reptiles could save. The larger they could grow. That's why we don't see snakes this size today. Our cooler planet limits how big reptiles can get. But in the Eocene, there were no limits. This creates a scary thought. Vasuki was not some weird accident of nature. It was the normal result of its world. A world where the air was thick, forests were dense, and rivers were full of prey. For millions of years, this snake ruled its swampy kingdom. It was a silent giant in a tropical paradise. But no giant lasts forever. As Earth's climate changed, so did Vasuki's fate. To understand its full story, we must look at its family tree. We need to see the ancient line of snakes it came from and how they spread across continents. Vasuki was not a random accident of evolution. It belonged to the Mythology family, a group of massive snakes that once lived across ancient Gondwana. This family first appeared nearly 100 million years ago. This was long before India had broken away from Africa and moved north. For tens of millions of years, they lived on many continents: Africa, South America, Europe, and finally, India. When scientists looked at Vasuki's backbone pieces, they noticed something familiar. The bones were broad and barrel-shaped. This wasn't designed for a fast-moving hunter. It was built for slow ambush attacks and huge strength. Each backbone piece was 37 to 62 millimeters long and up to 111 millimeters wide. This gave Vasuki a body thick enough to crush almost anything it wrapped around. Why is Vasuki so important to science? Because it proves that giant snakes were not only in South America, where Titanoboa once ruled. They were predators all over the world, spreading across the drifting continents of Gondwana. Vasuki shows that India's prehistoric ecosystems weren't alone. They were part of a much bigger evolutionary story. The name, Vasuki indicus, connects science back to culture. In Hindu mythology, Vasuki was the snake king coiling around Shiva's neck. He helped churn the cosmic ocean. Naming this huge fossil after him wasn't just pretty words. It was symbolic. It shows how ancient people imagined giant snakes. Science is now finding out that such beasts really existed. For paleontologists, Vasuki is like a puzzle piece that finally fits. It shows how these huge snakes spread after India moved into Asia. It hints at possible connections with Europe and Africa. Its survival during the Eocene suggests that giant snakes were not rare freaks. They were part of a long evolutionary experiment that lasted tens of millions of years. Even within this family of giants, one question burns. How does Vasuki compare to the legendary Titanoboa? This snake is often called the largest to ever live. To answer that, we need to put them side by side and see which truly deserves the crown. When most people think of giant prehistoric snakes, only one name comes to mind: Titanoboa. Found in Colombia, this monster lived around 60 million years ago. This was just after dinosaurs went extinct. At nearly 42 feet long and weighing over a ton, Titanoboa earned the title of largest snake to ever crawl across Earth. But with Vasuki's discovery, that title is no longer secure. At an estimated 36 to 49 feet, Vasuki was nearly the same size. It was possibly even longer than Titanoboa. Some scientists think that if the biggest estimates are true, Vasuki could have stretched to 15 meters. This would beat Titanoboa completely. Imagine that. Two continents separated by oceans, both produced reptile giants that dwarfed every modern snake we know. Yet their stories came from different worlds. Titanoboa lived in a steaming greenhouse rainforest in what is now South America. It hunted giant fish and turtles in swampy rivers. It dominated its ecosystem when there were no large mammals. Vasuki lived in India's rich wetlands during the Eocene. It lived alongside crocodiles, catfish, and even early whales. Its environment wasn't just warm, it was a land in transition, slowly moving towards Asia, bringing new challenges and opportunities. The two snakes were also shaped differently. Titanoboa's backbone pieces suggest a body made for water life. It was thick, heavy, and perfect for hunting in water. Vasuki seems to have been more of a general ambush predator. It was equally dangerous on land and in rivers. Titanoboa was a swamp king. Vasuki was a snake emperor, ruling both banks and waters. But here's the truth. In paleontology, size is never exact. We only have fragments. Backbone pieces, ribs, pieces of skeletons. Length estimates are built by comparing these bones to modern snakes. Could Titanoboa have been heavier overall? Very likely. Could Vasuki have been slightly longer? Possibly. We may never know for sure. What we do know is this. Earth has created not one, but two huge snakes. Each stretched nearly 50 feet. Each ruled its own ancient kingdom. That fact alone changes how we see snake evolution. These were not isolated freaks of nature. They were repeating patterns. They were born from climates so hot and ecosystems so rich that nature pushed reptiles to their limits. The rivalry of Titanoboa and Vasuki is not a simple contest of size. It's a story of two worlds, two climates, and two branches of evolution. They led to creatures so massive that they challenge our imagination. But like all giants, both Titanoboa and Vasuki eventually disappeared. Earth cooled. Forests thinned. The reign of huge snakes came to an end. Yet, their fossils remain. They are silent, reminders of a time when snakes grew as long as buses and crushed crocodiles in their coils. Every fossil tells a story. But Vasuki's story isn't just about size. It's about what life on Earth can do when conditions are right. For millions of years, warm climates allowed reptiles to grow far beyond what we see today. Crocodiles were larger. Turtles were huge. Snakes like Vasuki stretched almost 50 feet. Our planet was once a place where giants were not rare. They were normal. But as Earth's climate changed, so did its creatures. When global temperatures cooled, the age of huge snakes ended. Vasuki and its relatives disappeared. They left behind only scattered bones buried in rock. In their place, smaller snakes adapted. They survived into the world we now know. Evolution doesn't favor the biggest. It favors the ones that can survive change. That's why Vasuki matters. It reminds us that the world we live in today is not permanent. climate shapes life. When climate shifts, so does the future of every species. The giants of the past prove that there's also something beautiful in the name Vasuki. In Hindu mythology, Vasuki was the cosmic snake wrapped around Shiva's neck. He endured the churning of the ocean of milk. He was a symbol of strength, patience, and balance between destruction and creation. Here in the rocks of India, science found a snake worthy of that name, one that once ruled rivers and forests with silent power. Looking at its fossils today, we're reminded of a humbling truth. Humans often see themselves as rulers of Earth, but in deep time, we're newcomers. Long before us, snakes longer than buses, turtles the size of cars, and crocodiles as big as trucks dominated this planet. Our world was their world first. So when you hear stories of mythical snakes and legends, remember, they may not be completely fiction. Once, long ago in the swamps of ancient India, there really was a snake king, and his name was Vasuki.